Welcome back to the NFL Quick Talk podcast. Y'all know to subscribe. Let's skip the intro. Let's get right into it. We're going with the top fits, in my opinion, excuse me, for head coaching candidates at all these new respective jobs. Of course, Gerard Mayo just got picked up by the Patriots. Seems like he was already a predestined choice. And we have 7, not including the Patriots because we're not going to include them. 7 head coaching jobs that are open, which I think will be filled. Number 1, we're going to go with the Commanders here at the start, and I'm just going to say that Eric Bieniemy deserves that job. He was the offensive coordinator at Kansas City for a long time, was in there in the early years of Patrick Mahomes and the current years of Patrick Mahomes, and he went to Washington this year to be their offensive coordinator. And Sam Howell wasn't that guy. That's okay. You get a bona fide star on the draft. That's going to be just fine. They trade up and get Caleb Williams. If not, you just grab Jaden Daniels, just casually. Just grab a generational talent at quarterback. So I think that he will be a very good coaching fit. I feel like players like to play for him, and he already knows the system. He already knows the owner. He already knows the GM. He already knows everyone in the building because he's been there. So I think that that's a logical scenario for the Commanders, and they have pieces. They don't have a complete team yet. In my opinion, they have pieces, and they need to fill that in the draft and free agency. All right, next for the Chargers. The Chargers might be the best job. I think it is the best job out there. Them and the Seahawks. Those are two really good jobs. And I think there's 2 head coaching candidates that work here, but I'm going to say the one, and I'll say the other one with the next team we're going to do. I think that Bill Belichick is not done coaching, and I think that he goes to the Chargers and coaches there. It's the send-off that Bill's going to need. Bill, he's been in New England, snowy weather. Once it turns to November, let's face it, he was done with it. Brady was done with it. He went south. I think Belichick's gonna Belichick. He's already been done with the. Excuse me. He's already been done with the Patriots. Now I think he moves southwest. I think that the Chargers they have the. This is what I say. They already have the top 3 draft. The top 3 most coveted draft positions: left tackle, wide receiver, and QB. They already have guys at not wide receiver, defensive line. It's defensive line, offensive tackle, and quarterback, and they have studs at each of those positions. So you could do a number with that pick, and you could trade down. Obviously, you wouldn't let Bill draft, but you would get his input on what he wanted for that team. The Chargers missed the most tackles last year. That's factually true. They missed a whole ton of tackles. Even star safety Derwin James missed a lot of tackles. He was known for being one of the top tacklers in the league at safety. I think Bill Belichick brings that hard-nosed mentality, that defensive first style approach to an offensive team, and I think that can work out really well. Now we move on to the Raiders. The Raiders, and this was my second. I went back and forth between Bill and this guy for the Chargers, but I think that the Raiders getting Jim Harbaugh is an ideal fit. Jim Harbaugh, kind of an eccentric guy. He's got a personality to him. I love that about him. He, you get the whole baggage with him. He's going to mess up a couple times. Messed up a couple times at Michigan. No big deal. He fed a couple hamburgers to some kids at a dead period in recruiting. I don't really consider that too much of something of a crime, but you know what? The NCAA is going to punish him for anything. But I think Jim Harbaugh with the Raiders makes a great logical choice. He plays hard-nosed football. He knows how to train you to hit, and he would fit really well with that Raiders mantra. The Raiders, they really emphasize them and their owner, Mark Davis, really emphasize being aggressive, being explosive on offense, which is what Michigan was. They were very explosive on offense when they had the luxury of being explosive. But they also, you get Josh Jacobs back in the building. You draft a couple offensive linemen. You pick up a couple, and I think that they will be able to do really well with Jim Harbaugh because Jim Harbaugh is going to make that defense a whole lot better. Moving on to the Seattle Seahawks, I was so surprised that Pete Carroll left. I get it, he's old, he looks old, but he still got that pep in his step, you know. And Pete Carroll is going to still be with the team. He'll be an analyst at some point, but excuse me. I think Mike Vrabel fits in here very well. I think he's a younger, more offensive-minded defensive mind. And what do I mean by that? I think, Pete Carroll was very into defense, obviously. So is Mike Vrabel. And Mike Vrabel did very well with the Titans. He had their defense looking really good every year. Even their defense this year wasn't too bad, even though the whole team was a disaster. That's too strong, but you get what I'm trying to say. And I think the Seahawks getting Mike Vrabel will keep that defense first mantra, and they keep the weapon. They keep drafting offense and develop. They draft the offense, and they develop the defense. And I think that he will be a very nice fit in Seattle, especially with Pete Carroll helping him as Pete Carroll phases out. Now we move to the Titans, Mike Vrabel's old job, and I think Frank Reich deserves a second chance. The Titans have have had a lot of defense with Mike Vrabel, and I think Frank Reich comes in and he'll be able to really help out Will Levis. I know he said that about Bryce Young, but what weapons did Bryce Young have to throw to? Laviska Shenault? Like, he had nobody. Clearly, David Tepper was crazy to fire him after 9 games with a roster that was just a junk pile. And I think that Frank Reich deserves a second chance. He'll go to the Titans. He'll really help out Will Levis there. They do have some offensive pieces. They bring back DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like DeAndre Hopkins is happy there. And if they get an offensive mind in the building, I feel like he'll be able to help them out. The Panthers. I just did not know what to do for these guys. I don't know who wants to go to the Panthers. No one wants to go to the Panthers. People like Ben Johnson will go. He'll go. These other guys will go. I picked out Mike Macdonald, the Baltimore defensive coordinator, just because Baltimore's defense is so good this year, and Mike Macdonald's ready to make the head coaching step, and the Panthers need to focus on defense. But you could very easily say that a guy like, frankly, Frank Reich, but, he's already been there and done that, and he doesn't want to go back. Or Ben Johnson, they could come in and help Bryce Young out. But I think they need to solve they're just a total mess. They need to just solve things. You know what I mean? They just need to solve things. And I think Mike Macdonald comes in and helps them solve the defense piece by piece, little by little. And finally, for the Falcons, I picked Ben Johnson. This is kind of my dream scenario here. Is Ben Johnson going to the Falcons? Can you imagine that Ben Johnson with all those weapons? You have Bijan Robinson, who is underused. You have Kyle Pitts, who is criminally underused, one of the best talents coming out of the University of Florida at the tight end position. He was drafted number 4 for a reason. And there were some dang good quarterbacks in that class. Wasn't that Trevor Lawrence's class off the top of my head? Can't remember, but you have Kyle Pitts, generational talent, used as a blocking tight end for like Cordelline Patterson to get a carry. And then you have, obviously, the wide receiver from USC. Forget his name. Drake London. There we are. Drake London, criminally underused as well, although he'll have a couple spurts. Art Smith's up here drawing up plays for, as I said, Cordelline Patterson. Not to pick on him. He was good. He's just outdated. They have new players. So, they get a quarterback in the room. I think a guy like Jaden Daniels will play very well in the Dome. I think he'll play very well. And I think that that's really a dream scenario for me. They threw a lot of money at the defense last year. It didn't really help out, but, you draft defense after you get a quarterback. You continue to develop the defense. I think that the Falcons could be a decent team with Ben Johnson. All right, that's all I have for today. Obviously, so go to if you don't subscribe, and I highly encourage you to, go to my community post page. I'm posting polls with images, all this other stuff all day, pretty much. I put out tons every day for wild card weekend. I put out one for every team, just who wins, stuff like that. I'll do that for divisional, championship, Super Bowl, and I'll be doing that for a lot of other stuff, like where do you think this coach goes, where do you think this guy goes, and it's really fun, and our numbers have been pretty decent for the channel as of late. I think it's something like 30, 40 votes per one on average. But getting it up into the hundreds would be awesome. So go check that out. Subscribe. Just subscribe to the channel so that makes it a lot easier for you so that you can access it. And I'll see you in the next one.